Allie with Potomac Beads. Join me in making this Prague pendant while learning how to bezel a cabochon, do some square stitch, and also some brick stitch along the ends. If you need any materials, check out the links below to shop with us online. Go ahead and gather up all those materials and let's get started. So I'm using for this design a filigree disc in the mandala style. And this is a Zamic silver piece. We also have it in bronze. And what I'm going to be doing is linking in to the outer and the second hole in. As I get further inside, I can actually get my needle into those holes. They're just for decoration. The nice thing about this pendant is it is reversible as you're working with it. I've gone ahead and counted the outer rows, which is 28. And then on the inner row, I have 48, which is great because it's an even number. You want to know that ahead of time in case you are using a different filigree piece. I have a size 12 needle that I've put on 5 feet of beading thread and added a stop bead to the back. I'm coming out of one of those inner rows of my mandala pendant here, and I'm coming out one of the 48 holes. I'm going to pick up one Delica bead, and I'm using two different Delica colors. This one is a bronze luster, and I also have an opaque guava that I'll be using. To begin, I'm going to add one Delica bead as I come out of a hole, and I'm going to go into the hole that's next to it. Grabbing that through then, that Delica bead is just going to sit right on the top of the design. Turning the mandala over, you can see what hole the thread is coming out of. I'm going to go into the next one in line. As I do so, I come out to the front and I'm going to add another one of my Delica beads, and these are the 11-0 Delicas. Taking your thread coming out of the one to the left there, you're going to go into the next hole on the right-hand side. This is 2 beads that I've done so far, and because I have 48 holes, I know that I have 24 beads that are going to sit nicely inside of this design. So we're going to begin by adding another 22 beads the whole way around, going in and out the mandala through the holes and adding on one of my Delicas. This row I'm going to add all of this bronze luster Delica, and you just want to make sure as you're doing it that you don't miss any holes because you want to make sure to have a nice even number. If you need to, you can turn it over and see a thread looping through every other one. I'm going to continue doing this till I have 24 on my outer edge. That way I can build up my peyote setting for my cabochon on top. So I've gone ahead and I've added 23 of my Delicas, and I'm on my 24th one. I'm coming out the last set basically of holes. So I have those 2 there. I'm going to go into the last one, and that's going to bring me out right next to the stop bead. When I come back out then, what I'm going to do is go back into that mandala hole that has the stop bead, into that first loop there. And this is a really great way to learn bezeling because it's a really simple start to the peyote stitch. From here then what we're going to do is we're going to step up through that first bronze Delica that we added. When we do this, we start to establish then our first row of peyote. That first row of beads is going to be the first row in the peyote stitch. What we're going to do now is get our opaque guava, and we need 24 of those. If you need to, you can dump them out and count them out ahead of time. But honestly, with the help of this mandala disc, the nice thing is it's really, really set up well for you. What you're going to do is simply add one of your pink Delicas, and you're going to sew into the next Delica along the mandala. So I'm not going through the holes of the disc at all. I'm just adding one bead at a time and sewing through the next one. There's one, here's 2. So this is establishing my second row here of my peyote stitch, which is going to work to hold my cabochon in place. So on goes 1, and then through the next. So we originally added 24 of our bronze beads, that bronze luster. Now I'm going to add 24 of my pink beads the whole way around, right back to my start. As you finish up this second row, you're going to sew through the first of your bronze bead that your thread was coming out of, and then additionally to step up to the next row of peyote in order to add another row of that bronze luster, you're going to go through the first of that guava, that Duracoat opaque guava that you just added. I know it's only 24 of the guava color that you add, but that color pop really does help along the design. We're going to go one more round here with the Delicas. So as I go around in a circle, I'm going to pick up one more bronze, and I'm going to sew through my guava bead. What's going to happen here is those two bronze, as I add row 3, you really want to pull together. Try to start forcing it towards the middle of the design, and you're going to have two bronze beads that sit one on top of the other. Every other bead, you're going to have the guava singularly, and then one on top of the other of that bronze. Go ahead all the way around, adding in 24 total more bronze beads. After that, then we're going to switch over to 2 rows of some 15-0s in a beautiful, nice sea opal color. As you go in now and add your last of your beads, I'm going to go through, as I add that 24th one, I'm going to take my needle and thread through the guava. That's the first one that my thread was coming out of. And then at the same time, you're going to go up through and step up through that first of the bronze that you just added in this 3rd row. Now, just like we did before, we're going to start introducing 15-0 seed beads. What the 15-0 seed beads are going to do is bring this even more in towards the interior as we pull the rows together. We're going to go do 2 rows of my matte opaque Seafoam, and then we're going to do one row of our champagne. As you're doing this and you're adding again 24 beads, because the 15s are smaller, it's really going to start pulling it in towards, the interior of the project. You're going to do 2 rows of the matte Seafoam color. So one goes on through the bronze. As you're pulling it in towards the center, pull the thread close to the beads rather than the needle, because then you'll damage the thread that's currently inside of the eye. So 2 times around, doing the step up after adding your first 24 into that first bronze bead, and then out of the first one of your opal. With that sea opal then, you're going to do one more row again of 24, adding 2 complete Delica rows of that sea opal, so you see a nice color band the whole way around your cabochon. So after going around 2 rows here with our nice sea opal color, I'm adding the last one, and just like I did previously, I'm going to do one more row of my peyote stitch. When I do the last row of peyote stitch, I'm going to grab the Duracoat galvanized champagne color of my 15-0. I want to put my cabochon in the middle there, making sure that it fits before I pull tightly and add my last row of my 15s. The cabochon that I am using is a part Puca cab, and it's the Opaque Rose Bronze Luster. It's an 18mm cab. So that 18mm cab right now, you'll kind of hear it jingle, jangle in there a little bit. We're going to pull our nice last row tighter, and it'll fit in there perfectly as we go around. So just put your cab in, keep it in there so you can pull nice and tight. Adding 1 champagne, go through the sea opal, pull it again towards the center of the project to really pull that whole peyote row in towards the center. 24 beads later, we'll switch and we'll get to the exterior, fill in some of these holes, and then do a little brick stitch. After you finish adding in the last row of those 15s, you're just going to kind of press it down towards the cabochon. Give a nice tight pull, and if you want to, you can even go one more row. What I'm going to do is go down and downgrade now. So I'm out through my first gold bead. I'm going to go down through the first row after of the sea opal. Then from there, I'm going to go down again through the bead after in the next row of the sea opal. From there then, after I come out of that bead, I'm going to go down through that bronze bead, down through the guava bead, down through the bronze bead. So I'm going on an angle through that row of beads till I get to the base stitch. When I get to the base stitch then, what we're going to do is we're going to bring our thread from the bottom here up towards the second hole series that are on the outer edge. So that way I can add in my 8 seed beads. Just like I did with the previous starter row of my peyote stitch, I'm coming out through that first row of the mandala that I attached to. And I'm going to take my thread and needle and go up to the open hole from the back towards the front to that outer ring. From here, I'm going to add one of my 8OC beads, also in the Duracoat galvanized champagne color, and go down through the next hole there. Go up through and out, just like we were doing, and then again, add another 8. So just like we did the previous row, at the start, we're just adding one bead through every other hole that's open along the disc. So I'm ready to add my last 8OC bead here, and it's going to be a total of 14 C beads since there are 28 holes in this outer mandala. From here, what I want to do is just kind of lock that last one in place. I'm going to go back up through the first one that my thread was coming out of. I'm going to go back through that same 8OC bead that was already there, and then I'm going to go out through the back of the mandala. When you flip this over, you're going to see just the slightest little thread trace from the bottom towards the top. And it's very, very, very hard to notice. So the nice thing about this pendant is it will work as a reversible pendant. From here, we're going to switch to brick stitch for the outer row. Brick stitch is always going to start out with 2 beads at the first row. To do so, I have 11 OC beads in my Picasso, and this Picasso color is going to be also the Picasso Seafoam color. I'm going to add onto my thread and needle one of the 11 OC beads, one of my 15 O in champagne, and one 11 OC beads. Go back through the mandala, kind of pinching right there. You can see how I don't want the C beads to fall to the back, nor to the front. I want to take my thread and needle through that second of my Picasso beads, and just through the Picasso. The 15O is going to work as a picot trim or a little decoration on the outer edge. From here, I'm going to continue adding 1 15, 1 11, so from the back to the front of the design, pushing along the back there with my finger, and then so back up towards that 15O every time through the 11. That is going to put the beads to sit right on that outer edge. As you do this, you're going to notice that the beads are going to share a hole. So every other one is going to have one piece of thread that you can see kind of visible through the hole, and the next one is going to have 2 threads going through. Then 1, then 2, then 1, then 2, and so forth. So from here, I'm going to go in. I have 2 going through that first one there. I know that I'm going to hop over and go through this next one because I have 1 already through the one previous. Add it in, go back through the 11O, just let that 15O be a picot trim. And now when I do the next one, I'm going to share that same loop. So the 15 goes on, the 11 goes on. So from the back towards the front, kind of pinching those beads in your hand and making sure they sit next in line. Go ahead then, sew through your 11O, and only your 11, not your 15, and continue on. You're going to go the whole length along the design, alternating holes, so 2, then the next one 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, the whole way around, till we get to the top where we're going to join the 2 together and create our bail. So I'm finished going around the pendant and adding in my 11 O's. Normally if I wasn't going to do a bail, I'd add 1 15O there and then sew down through the first bead that was added. Remember, there's 2 added at a time. Instead, what I'm going to do is make my bail there. So I'm going to grab 2 of my 8OC beads in that champagne color, and I'm going to dump out some of my Seafoam 15s. From here, I want you to take 1 and 2 of your 8OC beads. You're going to sew down through that first 11O, and then sew up through the 11O that sits to the left of it there. So we sew down through the first 11, up through the last 11, and we're going to sew up through the first of the 2 8s and just have them sit right on top of one another there. From here then, I want you to put on 1, 2, and 3 of your 15 O's, and then put on 1, 2, and 3 more 15-0s. So down through the 8-0 that sits right on top there, and then up through the 8-0 on the left. So through the 3 15s on my left-hand side there, and then have your needle exit before the other 3 15s. From here, add 3 more 15s for the left side, 3 more right away for the right side. After you do so, sew down through the 3 on the right side. Let those kind of fold over without the thread being twisted. And then again, take your thread and needle, sew up through the 3 on the left-hand side that you added first, and then also the 3 that you just added. So you're going to sew up through a total of 6 of your 15s on the left-hand side here. Give a nice tight pull, and that's going to get that bail to come together. And what we're doing is, kind of looks like a herringbone stitch there, but we're actually just doing a little bit of square stitch. Again, we'll do another group of 3. 3 go on, and then again another 3. So you're really adding a total of 6. I just wanted you to catch on that 3 go to one side, 3 go to the other side. So down through the last 3 beads there on the right-hand side. Let those beads fall over top, and then sew up through again 6 beads on the left-hand side, starting with the previous 3 and sewing through the new 3. I'm going to do this 2 more times, and then we'll fold that bail over and connect it to the back. So once you know that your bail is long enough, and I actually did 6 groupings of 3 here, your thread is coming out the left-hand side. We're going to bend those beads towards the back of the pendant, and I'm going to sew into the left-hand side 8-0, which looks like it's on the right because it's upside down. From here then, go in and up through that right 8-0. So you're going to see the thread just kind of catch there. That pulls that bail down. I'm going to take my thread and needle then, and we're going to go through the entire right side here of the bail. And what's going to happen then is that's going to round out really nicely along the back, pulling the thread there. And you have your nice kind of seamless bail there. So whole way through then, all the way around to the front, taking your needle through all those 15s. And then once we get to the front here, we're going to bring our thread down towards that starter bead right here and basically tie the 2 ends off. So simple. This pendant is a great lesson in my opinion, a great lesson of both peyote stitch and creating that bezel, as well as doing the brick stitch and now finishing up with that nice square stitch. Once you get to the bottom of the design, go ahead and go through that 8-0 seed bead right underneath. Come towards the back. Once you go through the 8-0 seed bead along the back there, also go through that first 11-0 that we started with. If you want to, so you don't see any additional thread, you can go ahead and tie this thread off here, tie that one up there, or like I said, kind of sneak along the back, just sewing underneath the thread. And when you throw underneath the bridge threads then you have the thread going underneath there. Once you finish up and knot your thread along the back there, your pendant is complete. What I wanted to touch on previous to kind of closing out is just tell you about all the varieties again and just reiterate all the different stitches that you learned during this pendant. You learn how to do that nice peyote stitch, and quite easily, I may add, to do that nice bezel around. Also just doing that in and out, and then switching off to that picot trimmed brick, followed by that nice square stitch to end it off. Remember, you can omit many of these things. If you don't want the cab in the middle, just skip to the outer 8-0 row. Don't want the brick stitch along the end, just tie the thread towards the back. or just do the brick stitch, multiple rows, hang fringe down at the bottom. Really, the possibilities for this Prague pendant are endless. And it reminds me of the clock in Prague there, that astrological clock. That's how it got its name. Thanks so much for joining me and making this Prague pendant. Remember, there are so many varieties that you can do. If you haven't already, also comment with your ideas below, as well as a little thumbs up, or share with a friend that would love to learn a bunch of these stitches. Keep in mind also, if you do need any materials, check the links below to shop with us online. As always, thanks so much for watching and enjoy all the techniques that you learned making your Prague pendant.